G'day, I'm Adam Collins. Welcome to Stories. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by author Nadine Brandes. Nadine is the author of the new Christian Dystopian novel, A Time to Die. Well, hi Nadine, welcome to the show and thanks for being a part of it.
Hey Adam, thanks for having me.
Could you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Well, I'm one of the lucky few who gets to stay home and be a full-time author. I also work as a freelance editor of fiction, so that basically means I get to stay home and read all day. I live with my husband in Idaho in the States, where we have really long winters, lots of snow, and hardly any summer.
That's great. And can you tell us a little bit about A Time to Die?
A Time to Die is my first book. It's a dystopian novel about a culture where everyone has a clock telling them exactly how long they have to live. And my main character is 17, and the story starts where she has only 1 year left to her life, but she feels like she's wasted her life so far. So she starts spending that year a little bit more daring, kind of defying the authorities and going against some of the questionable actions that she sees them doing. So it's about her trying to find that purpose in her life.
Oh, that's great. How did this book come about? What was the inspiration?
I always have piecemeal story bits in my head, but what really glued them all together for A Time to Die was when an acquaintance of mine passed away, and I'd never actually met him. I knew his family, and they told me a lot about him, but he passed away so suddenly that I started thinking about the time that God's given me. I felt like I had watched this gentleman ditch everything that we're supposed to find important, like school or the family business responsibilities, and he would ditch them to go to Africa and serve different villages there. And once he died, I couldn't help thinking that something inside of him knew that he didn't have the time to pursue those other things, to pursue school. He only had a short amount of time, and he spent it where he felt God was calling him, which was in Africa. And something was pushing him to do things that mattered to him. So I started asking myself, what would I do if I knew how much time I had to live, and would I live differently? And from that came the idea of a culture who has that knowledge, and would they live a little differently, or would they still take advantage of it the way that we sometimes do?
Yeah, this idea that everyone knows when they're going to die is a concept that really grabbed me. And it opened up a lot of implications for the world that you've created, and it's a very powerful theme in the book, the way that this knowledge impacts the way that the characters live their lives. How has all of this impacted the way that you live your life?
Whew. Well, it's completely reformed how I live my life. I didn't really waste time before writing this book, but I didn't spend it in ways that truly mattered in the long run. Once I finally started viewing my life as temporary and dealt with the panic that came with that realization, my dreams for the future changed. I rethought completely where and what I devoted my time to, and this affected what books I chose to read, what movies I chose to go see, what long-time pursuits I started. If anything, it's really made me run at life and pursue it with more intentionality than I ever had before. It's inspired me to pursue God more and to pray harder and just really go after that epic adventure that God has waiting for each of us.
So, what went into the creation of the character of Parvin specifically?
Well, to be honest, Parvin was originally going to be a boy. I didn't have many plans for the character until a friend said, "Why does it need to be a guy? Everyone does boy characters." This, of course, was before the enormous dystopian explosion where every character is a girl. But after some thought, I decided to turn the character into a girl, and that opened the floodgates. Being a girl, I can obviously relate a little bit more, and I based her character off of a lot of questions that I had asked myself in my own life at some point, like what if I'd wasted my time? What's my biggest dream? Where what are some of my doubts, and how do I find purpose? I'm not saying Parvin is me. She just started out as a character addressing the same questions that I had asked in my own life at one time, so I wanted her to be relatable, and to me, that made her relatable. I have a younger sister who's Parvin's age, and so I wanted a journey that would resonate with other girls her age. That desire ended up building Parvin's character, and which was kind of a lucky thing because characters are my biggest struggle in writing. So that's some of the process behind how I created Parvin Blackwater.
I was impressed with the world building in the book, the various cultures that you created. I don't want you to give anything away, but what can you tell us about what went into creating cultures such as the albinos? And what inspired the idea behind the tightrope walking?
Well, that's kind of a tough question because either I have forgotten how I come up with these or they just come naturally. I like to think that they come naturally because that makes me sound even more brilliant, but I think I just forgot, which makes me a little absent minded. With the albino culture, that just started. I love asking the what if question, and I think back to the beginning of creation, how there weren't all these different races of people, and how we've kind of evolved into multiple ethnicities. And I thought, what if that happened with people who have albinism? And I just kind of ran with that. It's really not a prediction of the future, but um, I and then I built their culture off of, well, stretching another question. What if environmentalists got a little intense? So that's where the albino culture came from. As for tightrope walking, I would watch a lot of videos about tightrope walking, and I thought it was really neat. And I was amazed at how far someone could take that. I've watched a professional do it, giving somebody a piggyback ride or jumping up and down on the tightrope, laying on it, all sorts of tricks with balance that just came from practice. So I wondered what would happen if a culture was built around that and it was something that was just natural, which to us right now seems extreme and daredevil and it's in, circus acts. But what if it was more natural? So most of my ideas come from stretching the what if question and seeing where that takes me. And so those are two of the what if questions that built two different cultures in my story.
Your publisher, Enclave, is known as the primary publisher of Christian science fiction fantasy in the world, and it's undergone a lot of changes lately, including a name change from Archelaw Press and a new owner. What's it like working with Enclave?
I really enjoy working with Enclave. Granted, I don't have a lot to compare it to because this is my debut novel, so this is the first contract that I've signed. But Enclave, formerly known as Marcher Lord Press, was the kind of the top publishing house that I was shooting for when I was writing. I wanted to be published with them because I admired their vision behind why the company was started and why they publish the books that they do, and that's ultimately to reach a market that was previously neglected, the people who love fantasy and speculative fiction from a Christian worldview. I had the privilege of working under both owners. Jeff Gerke was the first one, and he is the one who offered me my contract, and I loved working with him. Very helpful and open-minded, and really made it feel like a team. And then when he sold it to Steve Lobby, while they're both very different, I have felt so comfortable with both of them. The publishers are really helpful, and me being a newbie, I need all the help I can get. So I've loved it, and I think it's a little bit more relaxed than the bigger publishing houses, which for me right now, I enjoy. It has a huge sense of community with all of the other Enclave authors, and that's something that I think is rare and needs to be appreciated while I can have it. So ultimately, all positive experiences. There isn't a negative there, and maybe it's too good to be true. Maybe the negatives are just waiting to show up, but I haven't seen them yet.
So, what else are you working on at the moment?
I'm currently writing book 2 in the Out of Time series, and it's really hard to write a sequel, especially under a deadline, but I'm enjoying writing it and seeing where the characters are taking me. I think you guys will like it a lot.
Do you have a next project in mind?
I do. I have lots of stories swirling in my head, and there's a portal fantasy that I've been wanting to write for years. I was actually working on that when A Time to Die invaded my mind, and uh, I couldn't get rid of it, so I had to stop my Portal Fantasy and work on the Out of Time series, which, as we can see, was a good choice because now it's published. So Portal Fantasy, another dystopian idea, but I can't give too much away because we need some sort of mystery to keep you coming back for more. So that's what I'm working on now.
Yeah, I think when people have read A Time to Die, they'll be pretty hungry for more books in the series. And I really like Portal Fantasy, so I'll be looking forward to that one day. So, a bit of a fun one. If you could recommend one book other than your own, what would it be?
Well, that depends. Just fiction or speculative fiction? No self respecting reader would recommend just one book. So, in regards to fiction, I would recommend the Mark of the Lion series by Francine Rivers. It is absolutely fantastic. I recommend it to everyone. That story takes place in Rome just after the fall of Jerusalem, and there are gladiators and Roman households and crazy lifestyles shown from the point of view of a messianic Jewish slave girl. So it is fantastic. In speculative fiction, at least on the Christian front, I would recommend the Blood of Kings trilogy by Jill Williamson. It was my first experience with Christian speculative fiction, aside from C.S. Lewis. And the story is well written and powerful, really unique, and everything that you would want in a Christian fantasy. So those are two series that I highly recommend to everyone.
Oh, cool. I've come across both of those series, but I haven't read either of them yet, so some good recommendations there. Well, thanks so much for your time and for being a part of the show, Nadine. It's been great talking with you. Where can our viewers find you and your book online?
It's been great talking with you. Thank you so much for having me, Adam. And you can pretty much find me anywhere. NadineBrandes.com is my website, but you can also find me on Facebook, Nadine Brandes Author, and Twitter, Nadine Brandes, Goodreads, Pinterest, Tumblr, all of which are Nadine Brandes. So easy to remember. And you can find my book on Amazon for Kindle and in paperback right now. And it will soon be available on Barnes & Noble and in Nook, and then hopefully a couple other e-readers out there. Just keep your eyes peeled.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find a bunch of ways on the About page of my blog, including my monthly email newsletter. Catch you next time.